All systems go. Clear for liftoff. What's up, everyone? Tyler Tamboline here, aka ToeTagginTambo, back for another edition of our PGA DFS show. Here on a Tuesday, we've got the Genesis Invitational at Torrey Pines playing the South Course. Got my guy Hoopster here with me. Going to break it all down as usual, go through some roster construction, some ownership thoughts. Last week, Scotty, big boy, biggest ownership of all time, 60%. So some crazy stuff there. Scooter's in the chat. We did put Zal on the graphic. It's not that he looks kind of old. We used an old graphic because we're looking for the Zalatoris of old. We're looking for a good Zalatoris this week based on the course fit rankings and the other stuff over at SHIPIT Nation. Hoopster, what's going on, man? Last week, fun week, good week, but not not the ownership I think everybody was expecting on Scotty when it got up to 60%.
Yeah, you kind of called it because we did the show last week, same time, and a lot of the initial projections looked in the 30 range, and you're like, nah, fuck that. Like, we're not buying that shit. Like, it's going way higher, and it went to 60. No one expected it, but I think it's part of like a bigger picture, talking point that we can kind of hit on for sure is these non-signature events. Right, whatever guys are playing in them will just get ownership because really it's a mix of a Korn Ferry Tour event, a bunch of mid-range PGA guys, and then you're going to get a couple high-end guys, and those couple high-end guys are just going to get big-time ownership. I mean, it's just the way it's going to shake out, and that's what we saw last week. I mean, there were some names, there's no doubt about it, but like it really was a lot of no-namers in the event, a lot of Korn Ferry Tour guys. So you saw the ownership go way up for guys at the top of the board. And it's just so funny how just a matter of like a few holes changed the whole dynamic of the week. I mean, for me personally, I ended up going 100% Scotty. I kind of talked about it on the show. I went 100%. With the back nine to go, that was looking pretty good. Scotty charging up the leaderboard. I had a D-Tree Scotty team. It was D-Tree, Scotty, had someone else way up there. It was looking pretty good. All those Scotty teams were looking pretty good. And then he missed that 4-footer, and then I think he made a bogey, and he kind of packed it in. And then Justin Thomas holes out for Eagle on the 18th, and he's the spend that you need on the week. And it's just crazy how just a few holes makes the whole difference of a week. Like if Scotty continues to charge, JT does not hole out for Eagle, like the Scotty all-in play looks really good. But, it's just the nature and the volatility of PGA DFS. But I do think what happened on that back nine last week will have some effect on ownership and roster construction this week, which we can apply to it. And, it's always the goal of this show. I mean, we don't want to be just picks and plays and we like this guy, don't like that guy. We want to talk about the overall picture, the bigger picture, roster construction, game theory stuff. So, that's always going to be the goal of this show moving forward, kind of getting away from the picks and play stuff and just talking through roster construction strategy. And I think the Scotty stuff this week is pretty interesting talking point because it is a signature event. We do have a lot of the big boy names, and it's one of those situations where you look at it and there's some guys that are at like all-time low prices. And I think that's another interesting talking point. So I know a lot of people want to shit on these signature events in terms of it being no cut, and this isn't it's kind of like a no cut. We'll talk about it. But man, like this is our only chance to get very solid fields outside of the majors. All these non-signature events are going to be weaker field stuff with a couple guys that we saw last week. At least we know ownership has a chance to get spread out because there's so many options. So no, I rambled on a lot there, and you can parse through and talk about whatever. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this week. And the prizes are always big. I mean, the big prize pools on DraftKings this week. FanDuel kind of giving up a little bit on their PGA product, but on DraftKings, big prize pools.
Yeah, you said a lot of good things there that I want to touch on, actually. So maybe bring this up. First off, I know there's a lot of confusion out there. People were wondering, different shows were saying different things. It cannot be more clear. You can go to PGAtour.com/signature-events to find all this stuff. It'll tell you everything you need to know about these signature events. But the main part you're looking at right here is the 3 player hosted signature events, the Genesis Invitational, the upcoming API, and then Memorial feature a 36-hole cut to the top 50 and ties, plus any player within 10 shots of the lead. So again, much smaller field. That could mean a ton of people making it through. We saw this last year, Hoop. There was events where everyone said it's basically a no cut. And like everybody missed, and it was all the chalk missed, and it was a bad week for some. But then the opposite side of this is that sometimes it does drag along a lot more of the field, and everybody's hoping for that and going through all of it. But, Ross said what you talked about there. Quite the swing. I will say, just going over, definitely going to bring this up now. I think we're not going to share the community success, but it was an absolute huge week for SHIPIT Nation. We had over $500,000 plus 2 more Fantasy Golf World Championship seasons. Somebody asked, are you tracking it? It's not really. It's more just celebrating the success of the members. But Rex Hardbody shipped the 888 for $200K with Scotty. You go up to the next one. Ricardo shipped the 3180. He had Scotty. So you still got away with Scotty in a ton of places there. Kenny had a pretty good week, got a Fantasy Golf World Championship seat. I saw him in here just a second ago, actually. He always says we can start when we get here, but he's in here right now. So congrats to Kenny.
Yeah, it's not his squad. He must have been in like a 3-man qualifier or something. That team was pretty beat up.
He played, I think that was the 2K, because they did this year. I will say with the Fantasy Golf World Championship, you and I both had made it to the finals last year and wasn't our best performances, but we got there. It's a hard championship to qualify for, and it's an even harder one to get to when you got to go through 3 rounds. The setup of it was like usually you can get in for much cheaper. This year they've made it. There's a lot of 2K and 3K qualifiers. So it's a little bit skewed towards the top, but just a ton of, a 10K score for D Nasty, 10K for Mark, 10K for our guy DGen. He shipped the GPP last week. He'll be back tomorrow night with the emergency stream. Shout out to our guy Scarface, thinking about him lots. A Scotty Scheffler lineup up there for a 10K score. So, Scotty let me down another 10K, but a lot of people with really huge weeks. So if you want to get involved over at SHIPIT Nation, we are going to break it down here for you later, but we've got our new slate plan up. We've got DGen's notes. We've got the Stone. We've got the slate plan. PGA being back, though, I'll do the marketing quick right now. You can either take $50 off the all access and get the $99 plan for $49, including the optimizer, but you might have missed it, and we kept this running. So we were going to change it, but we did keep this on. If you're looking to get involved, there's no better deal than this across the entire industry for the annual package. You get from this time this year till this time next year for PGA only. Go to the site, click Join the Nation, go single sport. You get it for $299 for the entire season, or $349 if you need an optimizer, or if you want an optimizer, and you might want to include an optimizer, Hoop. So anything else you want to add, man, before we get into breaking this down further?
Yeah, you might want to do that. That would be a wise piece of advice. And like we keep talking about, I mean, this is the home for PGA DFS. I mean, regardless of what style of play you have, talk about it all the time, but the showdown stuff is absolutely phenomenal. I haven't got all the way home, but I've been playing most of these showdown slates and been very close, and it's literally just using our projections. And that's the nice thing about our product. It's priced in such an affordable way where, like, even if you're just using bits and pieces of the content, it still makes sense. And you look around the industry, no one's putting in the work that we're putting in for the showdown stuff. I can promise you that. I mean, some of our competitors are literally rolling out their main slate projections all the way through round 2, round 3, round 4, and not even adjusting it for like them playing 18 holes. I mean, they're literally just using the same numbers. It's absolutely wild to me. And then you got other sites where keep selling you on like you need this guy's projections, and then those guys disappear and take other opportunities. I mean, and they're charging like a shit ton more. So it's just very clear. Like, NFL's over. PGA is huge right now. MLB is right around the corner. But this is the home for PGA DFS in terms of content. So if you are somebody looking to get into PGA DFS content, like this is the spot to be. And like you said, you might want to consider including that optimizer when you check out.
Yeah, and I think Nick just said it. Luke's been on fire as well. Everything that the team does over there, like it's really much different than the rest of the industry. That's one thing. We're pretty transparent about everything we do, and we know what we are, and so we just talk about it in that perspective. We're not one to shy away from the business aspect of it. We get it, but people would never give a company any money if it wasn't for value. I truly think there is people giving other companies out there money right now and not getting the good value. Like, we know we're not the most popular site out there. But you have to remember when a company knows they're not number one and they're fighting to be the best possible, they put in the extra work. It's the sweaty try-hard mentality. We are not just running these projections for Showdown. We are not just running this stone for Showdown. It is all brand new. It is done overnight throughout the evening after the round ends with the most up-to-date weather, data, pricing, leaderboard stance, all of that. So that's why you can really, it's almost impossible, Hoop, at this point to play Showdown PGA and not see SHIPIT Nation logos at the top. If you are somebody out there who's not even a member, you can still support. We are going to have some big news coming soon on the logos as well. So you might want to get a SHIPIT Nation logo, whether you're a part of the site or not. Definitely want to make sure you get involved. Let's look at this though, Hoop. The point Justin made here, I will say, I'm not sure if you got a chance to check out weather yet, but definitely looks like rain coming in Wednesday overnight. By the looks of, again, our guy DGen will have you fully covered for this tomorrow night. He is #not a pour. He's got the specialty stuff, the HRRR, get you all set up over there to check it out. But I will say it is rain coming in, rain on Thursday, winds picking up Thursday afternoon. Friday, it's kind of scattered across. So I'm not sure if you're thinking about that right now or anything that comes to mind when you're looking at that. But I do think weather could definitely play a factor, especially because remember, we're playing Torrey Pines South. It's already a long course. If it's longer and if it's going to play longer due to the wetness and things like that, that can lead into more bomber heavy approach, longer off the tee, more accurate, get out of that thick rough when it's wet and soaked. And then on top of it, these long approach shots and things. So any quick thoughts on the weather before we hop into some of these tiers and whatnot?
Yeah, for me, weather's definitely more of a Wednesday thing, not necessarily a Tuesday thing. We'll see how it all shakes out. The tee times with the smaller number of golfers here, I'm guessing, are a little more condensed and not super spread out. So a lot of factors that go into it. Like you said, DGen does a very, very good job breaking it all down on the stream tomorrow. And with weather, I like to wait as long as possible before making like lineup decisions based on the weather. I want all the information I can have. A lot of times it can change as well. So definitely more of a Wednesday thing. And another reason, obviously, to tune in and listen to the stream tomorrow night, because again, DGen does a phenomenal job breaking it all down. But yeah, I mean, it's a tough course. And if we do see some of this, precipitation with winds, it could be a factor this week for sure.
I was just looking it up. I was getting a spot check while you were talking about that. The subscriber count, Hoopster. Let me pull this one up now. Bring it up. 9,740. So if people didn't know or forgot, if you like this stuff, it's always free. Talking about being around tomorrow night for DGen's show, all the other content that we have. Luke, they were talking about doing the showdown shows, round 2, round 3, round 4. That's just for golf. And then we got the rest of our team doing all the other content for the other sports. We are trying to get to 10,000 subscribers. So if you can help us out, like this video, make sure you subscribe. And when we get to 10,000 subscribers, we are giving away our all access annual pass with optimizer. So that's going to be the $9.99, the big boy, the most expensive package we offer. We're going to be giving one of those away to somebody who's a subscriber. We'll have a contest that coincides at that time where you do have to be subscribed. So once we get there, we'll announce that contest. I'll go back. We'll go through later. If you guys have some stuff for DGen's notes, we can look it up. I guess, two more things. One, shout out to our guy, Ross, always here supporting. The one thing about this is Torrey Pines Take 2, talking about the farmers that was just here recently. Like, you got to keep in mind too, there's this is probably not Ross thinking this, he's just noting it, but it made me think of the thought that others are looking at out there. Like, if it's gonna be different conditions, more wet, if it's gonna be wetter coming in, like we see, there is no north course to find that low round. They're just playing the south. So I just, as much as they're here in such a close condensed time, I think there was only like 4 or 5 of the top 20 golfers that are here that even were here last time out. So there's that component of it. So just keep in mind when you're looking at that stuff coming in, we are going to a course that we were just at, but it could be completely different. And this looks actually, Hoop, like it's going to play a lot more major-esque, right? Even in some of those majors, like a US Open, for example, the field's large, but there's a lot of qualifiers and amateurs and things like that, again, you can almost wipe out half the field. Chip Brooks Koepka used to say that. He'd say, like, it's me versus this small number of golfers, and that's my mentality. Mm-hmm. Even if you took some of that confidence or cockiness out of it, you can only extend the field so much. There's like 72 golfers here, whatever it is, and there is, I don't know what, like 30 or 40 that you're like, okay, for sure. You can condense your pool quite easily if that's how you feel about it. But I think a lot of people struggle when they get to the top and go, okay, Scotty or Rory for much cheaper. So let's talk about that, Hoop, because the Scotty effect, I don't think he comes anywhere near 60 this week after everything. I know his price barely changed, but I think people are really high on Rory at 10-9, obviously coming off of a win and being such a discount. And there is plenty of guys in the 6Ks that you can play, but at the same time, there's a lot of question marks around guys like, I don't know, let's just, name a few here. Nick Dunlap, Seamus Power, like some won't get played, like Mathieu Pavon, Danny List, Echeverria, like some of these guys just aren't going to get love. And then, Billy Horschel last week, some of these guys that people aren't going to be too happy with. So I think there's a couple that stand out in the 6Ks, but it does feel like more people will want to land in the 7s, and it's easy to do that, just as easy to do that with a Rory lineup as it is a Scotty. But give me your thoughts up top here.
Yeah, I mean, the recent factors, I think, recent events, recent things we've seen will definitely keep Scotty in check. And I don't know, like, is there a chance where, Rory gets more ownership, or is that just like a little bit too crazy thinking like that? I mean,
feels brazen right now, but we were close last week. Like I started the week high, and then by the time we got to the other, like to our show, it was like, man, I actually think it could end up being like 40 to 50. And I was trying to bet you on that. You end up getting not only that, but over 60. Yeah. So this week flipping around, it's going to be close. Like I could definitely see a world where they both come in the 30 to 35 range, I guess, is a possibility.
Yeah. So, I mean, you look at it with Scotty specifically, and what's working like against him, like in terms of ownership, what could potentially bring his ownership down this week? Well, I think there's three main things that will keep it in check and bring it down. He played like shit on the back nine last week. What was it, a 41, someone said? Doubled the last hole. It was not typical Scotty fashion. He typically always grinds out to the end regardless. He missed that 4-footer, and then he made a 4-footer for birdie, which would have put him, I think, 5 under on the round. The next hole he made bogey, and then, like, I'm not saying like he gave up, but like you could tell like he just wasn't into it and completely fell apart. I'm not personally holding that against him, but I think the DFS field will hold that against him a little bit. You got Rory coming off a win where he kind of dominated on Sunday, which over the last few years has not been the case. Like Rory in contention on Sunday the last couple years has been him melting down and playing like shit. He came out and absolutely stomped these guys, and he is $1,400 cheaper. Like more people are going to be considering Rory this week than a couple weeks ago. And then you have the, I guess, resurgence, I'll say, of Justin Thomas coming off a really, really bad season last year. Continues to play pretty solid, I'd say. Holding out for Eagle. He was never really in contention, but hold out for Eagle. And then the score is very nice, finishing 6th. And even the 48th place the week before, I mean, he made a ton of birdies. He scored, I don't know the exact number, maybe someone in the chat does, but he scored as if he finished like top 20 because all the birdies and Eagle. So people are going to want to consider him. And then Colin Morikawa up top at 10K flat. People always like him, and I think he has good course history here as well. So there's like multiple factors here, multiple reasons to look past Scotty. So I do think there's a chance that he definitely gets held in check when you consider the circumstances. It's a no-cut event. There's only 75 golfers, like you talked about. Normal like 2 weeks ago, if this plays out and Scotty doesn't have the injury stuff or anything to go along with it, or the last couple events, he's probably at least 50% for sure here. No questions asked. It's going to be in check this week. It just has to be. And I think Rory might have a chance to be right there with him in terms of ownership when it's all said and done. And I don't know, I think it provides a good opportunity for the Scotty people. If you're a Scotty person, which I am, I think we're going to have a pretty good opportunity to get him lower than he should be or typically would be in this spot. So that's my takeaway with Scotty. And I think it's always going to be a big talking point. I mean, this upper range will always be a big talking point, but I think it's especially important this week.
So I agree of the possibility, and I'm actually not against it completely. And we'll see how it goes as the week shakes out, because it's definitely a thing. But what worries me the other way is that, first off, enough people do know that it is still Scotty Scheffler. And at the end of the day, it's, if someone thinks that he's going to be lower owned at a hard or a tougher course, the way it's going to play, all of that, and they start to see it, I think people start to jam him back in. I do still have him rating out better than Rory. It's just a matter of you also have to pay for that. So it is baked in. Rory kind of bakes out better what looks like more like a point per dollar effect, so to speak, if you look at it that way. But you'll see, Hoop, and this is where we start, and when we get there later, in the ranges, you've got, in the 7K range, you've got guys like Minwoo Lee, Mav McNeely, Adam Scott, JT Poston, Siwoo Kim, all the favorites right there that basically make Scotty just work. So yes, some will move it to a Rory lineup. Some will look at it in different perspectives, but certainly something to think about there. And yeah, I think what Jay Steele says, that is definitely possible. I want to comment on this though, because you brought up the JT thing. JT doing what he did on the last 6 holes. I think it was 4 birdies and an eagle on the last 6 holes to round it out. When you're completely out of contention and you're JT and you can just turn it on, that is Patrick Mahomes to Worthy down 3 touchdowns in the Super Bowl. 100%. Yeah, amazing. One of the best throws I think I've ever seen in a Super Bowl, but too late, buddy. Like, it don't matter. So obviously you're just going to fire away. If you could get another pick, they can't say much worse about you. That was what happened with JT down the stretch.
Garbage time scoring. Yeah, certainly. It was garbage time scoring. It was never in contention. I mean, never, ever in contention. Right. Finishes T6, flurry of birdies at the end, playing for nothing. I agree. Yeah,
fire away. Like, fire again. I'm not shitting on the guy. Like, I definitely think he's been playing better golf lately, and he's in consideration for that reason. There's Morikawa there. There's Ludwig, who you got to think about a little bit here. The sickness and stuff that he's been going through lately. There's Hideki underneath, and so the bigger decision is that I think the 7Ks and that sort of thing sets up for Scotty, and you got to think about that perspective. But I also think, like somebody mentioned it here, and I'm not saying it's a bad comment or wrong. We all have our own opinions. Shout out to Josh for throwing his out there and being vulnerable. But he said, I'm always under on Scotty, just so high variance that it's a good play not to play him. We had a ton of discussion in our Discord on this last week for other reasons. Shout out to our guy. Jill came down with a 250. But just saying it's almost like people forget. When you're in the 7K range, there's probably 30 options around whatever option you're considering. When it's Scotty Scheffler at the top, it's not that he's inhuman or a god or whatever people want to call him. It's you're really only comparing him to like 3 or 4. Think about when Rory won a couple of weeks ago. It's like Scotty was right there. He led the field in approach, knocked off the rust. I think he came 8th, but it ain't going to help when the guy right underneath you wins the tournament. Obviously, you're in trouble. You mentioned it, Hoop, yourself. Scotty still ended up in a ton of winning lineups last week, but obviously that last surge by JT did help some people, and that's the game we play. Like you said, that can happen. But your real thought process this week is it is not a field of quote-unquote losers or whatever people want to call them out there. It is Rory McIlroy coming off a win, looking really good. JT coming off a flurry of birdies, good, bad, or the ugly, round 4 or not, still playing better golf. Morikawa, Oberg, Hideki, Cantlay, Im. Like, there's just a ton of guys up here. So maybe we do get the spot where it does keep him in check a little, but you got to think people that are just building lineups can still easily get to him, since the 8K range looks, enticing, but the 7K range is really loaded up with guys that people are able to get to quite easily. And so I could see where that ends up happening. Anything else you want to talk about with Scotty in particular like that? Or do you want to talk more about some of the other guys below the 10K range?
Yeah, I guess the one thing I brought this up and you touched on it, like starting Rory Thomas. Like, if people are going to want to go 2 studs, I think that's where Scotty ownership could come down a little bit as well, because you start to look at it and you're saving $1,400. Like, to go Scotty and JT, you're down to $6,900 per spot. If you start Rory, JT, $72, and you can stay in that 7K range, like you kind of alluded to, and avoid the 6K range. So, I don't know. My early lean would be that Rory and Scotty end up somewhere close in terms of ownership. I've looked very foolish, and I'll take my L's, like at the Austin Eckrow where I had to do the shoey. Like I'm always taking my L's. I don't give a shit. Like, these other people get on here and the bad takes, and then they just like move on past them and never want to talk about them. Like, I'll take the L, but I think it ends up being pretty close this week between those two, and for a variety of reasons. And then like the double stud lineups, I think, is another reason where we could see it being lower. Scotty's ownership being lower than anticipated.
Yeah, I definitely think it's possible. Talk to you about this next range then, like, Oberg, Matsuyama, Cantlay, Sungjae, Fleetwood, Pendrith. Some of these guys set up well for what we're talking about here with this course this week. It's just, that's the consideration. And when you've already got love going to Scotty and Rory and maybe one of JT or Morikawa, if not a little bit to both, no matter what happens, the math ain't mathing. Like, this area just has to be at least a little bit squeezed. Yeah. Versus, people getting to some of the Rasmuses, the Bobby Macks, the Sepp Strakas, the Dietrichs, all these guys. And then, of course, like I said, we'll get to those 7Ks. Those are getting peppered this week, and it's very condensed right now early on where that ownership is landing, and I'll give you the answers to the test when we get there.
Yeah, I think it has definitely a chance to go a little overlooked this week. I mean, starting right at the top, like who the hell is going to want to play Ludwig? Like after being what he came out the 2 tournaments ago, looked good, got sick, completely shit the bed, finished 42nd at the Farmers after shooting the 63 in round 1, played like absolute crap. Claimed he was still sick. I mean, who knows? I mean, it would have been like a week straight of being sick. Maybe he still was. Maybe he never fully rebounded. But shot the 77 and then withdrew at Pebble Beach. Can't imagine people are going to want to click that name, especially with the 4 dudes above him, Morikawa, JT, Rory, and Scotty. I'll tell you right now, I'll definitely be playing him. I mean, this sets up very well for him. I played him those 2 weeks very highly where it didn't work out, and has to get squeezed a little bit here. Matsuyama's been a pretty popular name, I'd say, for the most part through the beginning half of this PGA season. But I think this is a spot again where he could go a little overlooked. The recent results have not been good. I mean, he's been priced up there at the top, 32nd at the Farmers, 48th at the AT&T, and then 25th last week. Where he's been priced, like that's definitely not getting the job done. People might be at the point where they kind of had enough with him. Cantlay, always a guy that gets some ownership. I don't know. I mean, it's always tough to gauge with Cantlay. I mean, he's a name. People like him. And I always feel like when he's priced like 9,500 or below, he's always going to get some. It's just a matter of how much. Your boy Sungjae has not been great. In 3 out of the last 4 was good here, though, at the Farmers where he finished T4th. I'm sure that's enough to get him some ownership. Fleetwood at 91 and then Pendrith at 9K. Like that's now a pretty big price tag for a guy like Pendrith. And I've been playing a ton of Pendrith. The results have been good, but people might look at this and say, ooh, that's a little bit much for a guy like, Taylor Pendrith. So we'll see, but I think it definitely has a chance to go a little bit overlooked, to be honest with you. And there's nobody here that I look at and I say, man, I absolutely have to play these guys. Like I talked about Ludwig, I'm in on him because I do think the ownership's going to be low. But I think it's definitely a range where people could just overlook it and say, you know what, like I'll just get more exposure to the 10K and above range and, push some of these dudes here in the 9K range to the side. So I think, again, it could get squeezed a little bit here.
I agree. This I'm going to bring up quick. I think this got out in the world somehow and got mixed up. Like it was lost in the mix that he did not play the American Express when Sepp Straka won. So it was not like he was never playing 5 weeks in a row or 6 weeks in a row. I think this is only even his 4th since that. And he obviously had a win a couple weeks before the American Express. So just something to think about there. I think Decky's probably fine. I think this is a good point. Shout out to our guy, Kenny, very sharp. We're lucky to have him in the Discord over at SHIPIT Nation. Appreciate his insight, but he says this is talking about the Scotty thing, and it does play into the 9Ks for me here in a second. So I'll refer it back to what we're talking about. But he's saying, like, if those low-owned options, this is why we always talk about roster construction and concepts that go with it. Obviously, if Patrick Rogers, Woodland, Kevin Yu, guys like that down at the bottom that start to get, pick up steam, then that leads to more options with the ability to get to Scotty. It could be Rory some too, but for sure up there with Scotty. One of the things to remember, like it was already mentioned earlier, like immediately it was Rory, JT. If you're not going Scotty, I think it's really hard to make up the win equity for Rory, Scotty, JT, Cowan. Like that could end up being like 40 or 50% of the win equity in this field. That's what the books are going to have it. That's what you're going to see in the numbers, but you're not really it's like a if this, then that. Of course we expect that. Of course that's what's on paper, but it is golf and it is 4 full days and all of that. So I think the interesting part about the 9K range is people think like as soon as they go off Scotty, it means you have to go to Rory. Or as soon as I go off Scotty and Rory, then I have to do JT. Like you could definitely load up like Oberg, Matsuyama, Cantlay, or get 3 guys in here, and you're never picking up the win equity that's up top. You're just not getting it. But if those guys won the tournament, you would not be like, oh my gosh, how did Hideki Matsuyama win another tournament? Or how did Morikawa win? I know it sounds, and people like to make fun of some of these guys too, so I get it. But I'm just saying these are not wild winners if they ended up winning this tournament the way it's set up. So what it would do for you, in Kenny's example here, is it would make it so you don't have to go anywhere near. You'd be getting your last guy in to your lineup in the range that's usually going to be the 4th or 5th guy in a Scotty or Rory lineup. So you completely avoid that. And where there is still somewhat of a cut, and great point here, how much win equity did Dietrich have last week? Exactly. So it's definitely something to think about when you're looking at this stuff, Hoop. So I think in this 9K range, like I definitely have interest in probably more than most. I think I like Hideki, I like Cantlay, I like Im, I like Pendrith, and we'll see what happens with the rest. I get the Oberg thing, but it's more of his price to the other guys around him. Like I would still like Morikawa better. I'd probably just get the money and go up to Rory. I get it, but the other guys down here I could see playing, and I don't know what's going to happen with Pendrith's ownership, but I definitely have interest, man. It's probably too high. I like that they didn't Best Buy price him at like 8,600 or 85, where he's just under 9K. I like that they made him the full 9K flat, and it feels overpriced, but he's a big boy. He puts it out there clean. He's got opportunity. He's got other pieces to his game that could come through. He's playing really good golf right now, 7th, 9th, 13th. It's not even close to the same course, so I don't want to look at his previous results, but in stronger fields, big boy events, things like that, he definitely has shown up in the past. So I think he's fine. It's going to be awkward, but realistically, like Fleetwood, Tom Kim, some of the other guys around him, if you don't love them, I got no problem getting to Pendrith, and there's no Canadian bias, I promise. I think he's been playing good enough. So, but yeah, exactly. You like him? Man, Sungjae, this guy is so tilting, man. It is unbelievable every freaking time. But yeah, I'm going to stick with him. But you see him in the gym? I saw a little post yesterday. Sungjae Slim is coming back. I don't know if it might mess up his swing even more, but he's working on the health, man. He's getting in the gym. So I'm taking after my guy, Sungjae Hoop. I told you the show. I'm gonna get in shape this next 90 days. So Sungjae's my boy. He's in the gym. I got to get in the gym too, but I'll definitely have interest in Sungjae at 9,200. Let's talk about this 8K range. Go from Sungjae Im to Tom Kim. We got Tom Kim down to last week's winner, Thomas Dietrich. So give me your thoughts on this 8K range. It just has to go overlooked besides 2 or 3 guys that I'm seeing here with a little bit of early ownership.
Yeah, I think it's probably one of those ranges. And I feel like the 8K, it was like this last week where the bottom of the 8K range just looks way more appealing than the top. And roster construction kind of fits that too, where you want to get some of those high win equity guys that you talked about at the top. So maybe you save a few $100s and focus more on the bottom. I do think that's probably the case this week, where a lot of these guys at the top go a little bit overlooked, like Tom Kim at 8,900, like at this course. Yeah, I mean, I don't need to play him. Lowry at 88. I think Jason Day, though, is a guy that people will like here at 8,700. He's been playing well. I think the course sets up solid for him. I mean, it's just been pretty steady finishes. I mean, nothing worse than like T40 all season. And, that's not like great or anything, but he's 8,700, a couple more birdies. He's right there in the top 20, top 15. So I think he's an interesting option. I don't think people are going to have to play Henley here. Jordan Spieth was solid last week. I don't think this is a good setup for him. Like, I'm fine being off of him. And then I think it starts to get like a little bit interesting, like Sam Burns at 84, a little bit lower of a price tag for him. I have a lot of interest in some of these guys in the lowers, and I haven't seen like many solid preliminary ownership stuff, but a lot of these guys sound good to me. Rasmus Højgaard, 8,300, was very solid last week. Again, he fell apart on Sunday. Like he fell out. He wasn't going to win it. I mean, Dietrich took that thing and said, I'm taking this. It's mine. Højgaard's the one that kind of sucked. He shot the 71. People see that. People maybe want to avoid it. I like him at 83. Tony Finau, I think this is definitely a good setup for him. He finally played good at the Pro-Am. Sepp Straka. I mean, the Sepp Straka situation, if you've been playing Sepp Straka, just continue to play him. Like, do not stop. He's been very good. The ownership has yet to get to a crazy level. 8K for him. 15th last week, 7th, 1st, 30, 15. Like, he has been good all year. I think he could be like 9K. He could be right there with Pendrith this week, right? In terms of, if you look at the recent form and how well he's playing, he's at 8K. That's below the average roster spot, and he's been one of the best guys out there. And then the Dietrich thing too. I do think this is one of those situations where people are like, we've seen it go both ways, where a guy wins and people want to stay on him. When a guy wins, people want to stay off him. I think this is a week where people will probably stay off him a little bit, to be honest, because there's a lot of guys around him that are appealing. I have no problem going right back. I have no problem whatsoever going right back at 8K. Again, less than the average roster spot. He had success at the Farmers, shot he finished T15th there. I'm fine going right back to Dietrich. I hope the field kind of gets away from him. But I'm way more interested in the lower 8K range. It's going to fit what I'm doing with my teams anyway, and I'm just going to embrace these guys. I like a lot of them down here. Rasmus, Finau, Straka, Dietrich, I think are all very solid plays this week.
Okay, the chat is killing me. I will say we're halfway through, so we usually save it till the end, and we happily will. Hoop and I will definitely share more if people have like AMA stuff, want to ask us stuff, questions, because we did the food takes, Hoop, on the NFL shows, and obviously the NFL is no more. Shout out to the Eagles getting the job done, but they're talking about Tambo on day one or one day. That's the saying, right? Everyone says, "Oh, I'll go to the gym one day," but day one, if you just got started, you could find your way. But I laughed so hard at this one, I had to mute it. Said I'm modeling myself after Straka after I talked about Straka. Very big boy, but love to see that one, Steven. And then, toe tag and Rambo. Maybe
I will say in Tambo's defense, he has been going. It isn't like he's just starting the gym journey. I know for a fact we talk basically every morning. He is in the gym. Like you are in the gym, so you can clarify that.
Yeah, I should be like 240 pounds, but I'm not even close to that. I'm like 50 less. But I'm saying this is more like a structured setup. I went and saw a personal trainer that I'm getting set up for to go see a couple times a week just to get really dialed in. So that's kind of the setup here. Like I've been working on it for a while. I've had struggles with it, ups and downs. So I thought this would be a way that what I always say is if you pay, it's a marketing. If you pay attention. And that's what I always tell people. Like if you put your money in, it's nobody's fault but yourself, but you can either watch the money go down or you can do something about it. And that's kind of what I was thinking about with this. So it's not day one of the gym grind, but it's, not going to the gym just to say I went type of thing and just go through the motions. It's going to be a lot stronger push when it comes to that. But back to DFS, I think you said one thing about Dietrich that stands out is, it's what happens all the time, right, Hoop? There's no way he can show up again. He's not going to win again. He does not need to win. He is literally less than the average price. Like he's 8K. So when you're looking at it from that perspective, there's still opportunity there. I do like your Finau call. I actually think people won't go away from Rasmus. I don't think they can get away from how good Straka has been playing. Not saying they should. My point more being there's too many guys around Finau where I think people go to Rasmus, Bobby Mack, Sepp, some of the other guys, and then we're about to get to this upper 7K range is definitely going to have at least on Minwoo and Mav McNeely, there's going to be love there. Those guys are just from their odds perspective, the market. People might move to Keegan some even. We'll have to see how the steam and moonwalking goes on DGen show tomorrow night. But this upper 8K range is where it gets interesting. You're reaching because the guys in the nines are clearly better and it's not that much more money. But realistically, there's going to be like sub 10%, it looks like, on Tom Kim, Shane Lowry, maybe even Jason Day, Henley. I think those four interest me more than the Spieth stuff coming back and all that. But, the bottom range with Rasmus, Finau, Bobby Mack, Sepp, even a little bit on Dietrich, but Dietrich maybe second less after Finau. I think more people play the bottom than play the top. So that's just, how you got to think about it when you're looking at roster construction. You can consider that there. Anything else on the 8K, Soup?
No, I do agree. I mean, I think ownership and just overall appeal is going to be higher in the lower eights than the upper, but I'm not seeing anyone that's going to be like extremely highly owned in this range. I mean, maybe you do, but I do think there's enough options in this low eights where probably get spread out amongst those guys. And I didn't even mention McIntyre. I know you are typically a Bobby McIntyre guy, and he's been playing well at a solid finish last week right there too. So, I mean, he's going to have some interest there too.
I think this is true for the first part, Nick. I think the second part still doesn't happen. It's just a product of roster construction. You do any dry runs early. You look at those Scotty builds. You look at those Rory builds. It's not landing there. That will definitely be a way to get different. It's still, because again, people are still more than comfortable. You can go look up bomber stats for Rasmus, Bobby Mack, Sepp, these guys. So it's way more. And Hoop, one thing that was sort of overlooked last week that I think, again, you've been sort of the king or the captain of this team not worried about ownership, if you will, of like looking at it. Like last week when Scotty gets to 60, there was one guy after Scotty last week at 20, and now it slipped my mind who it was. After that, everybody was pretty much 16% or less. 85% of the field is avoiding everybody else, and it's just getting completely spread out. You really don't have to consider it as much at that point. Obviously, with your Scotty lineups, you didn't want to load them up with all 15 percenters and the top owned value plays. Yeah, it was Billy Ho. Shout out to Nick. He had it there. I think he was like 21.
He missed it, but it's like you got to kind of put that, how I'm not saying I have all the answers. Do not get me wrong, but how I envision it is putting these guys in kind of buckets or ranges. Like, okay, Billy Ho was 20. Someone else was right there 18. Like, what is the difference? It's the same damn thing. So it's like after that, you're looking like 15 to 20% range. Is a guy going to be between 5 and 10? All those guys that ended up 5 to 10 are the exact same play. There's like no difference. So kind of view it as just buckets and ranges. And that's kind of, and last week it was a little more extreme, but after Scotty, nothing else really mattered. I mean, there's a plethora. I don't know the exact number of guys that were right there between 15 and 20%. Billy Horschel was, at the top of that list, but there's no difference between someone, 17, 18%, and 20%.
And that's what I see here, just to round out the 8s, and we'll go to the upper 7s. But I'm seeing a lot of 10 to 15% range at the lower 8K range, like between the Rasmus, the Finau, Bobby Max, Sepp, Dietrich, those guys. I'm seeing 10 to 15% early, but I'm not seeing anything else, too crazy after that. Even in this next range, I don't know what these guys actually get to. I think they get steamed in higher stakes, Minwoo and Mav McNeely, that is. But we got the cover boy, Willie Z. We got Victor Hovland at maybe, I don't know if it's an all-time low, but 7,900 feels really low for Victor Hovland. Keegan Bradley, 77. So, Harris English won at this course, playing the North, then the South, a bunch in different conditions and whatnot. But he can grind. He's 7,600. So give me your thoughts on this 7K range and what you're seeing here. I will say, obviously the smaller field, but it's really slimmed down. Only 20 guys total in the 7K range altogether.
Yeah, the first name for sure, like Victor Hovland, that seems like I haven't been playing Hovland, but this definitely seems like a overcorrection all the way down to 7,900. You start looking at some of the names that are above him, and it's crazy. He's typically in this field like a 9,500 golfer, I'd say, last year. Like, you run this back last year, he's probably 9,500. Now he's all the way down to 79. I do think it's too much of a overcorrection. Now, what will that do for his ownership? Like, I think he is a guy that could potentially get steamed up because, man, anytime someone gets a massive decrease like this, there's just going to be some level of appeal when you start clicking names. But it's tough to avoid. 7,900, it does seem like a lot. Minwoo Lee, McNeely, those are guys that will get some. Zalatoris, the cover guy, our cover guy for this show. I don't know. I don't know if I necessarily. I've played him a little bit, to be honest with you, but have not. I don't know. I'm not certain what I'll end up doing with him. It does kind of fall off though for me. I just really prefer like the Hovlands, Minwoos, McNeelys over guys like Keegan, Benyon, Harris English. I do like Sam Stevens. Been playing solid golf. Does have solid course history here. As well, and just seems like a guy that's kind of taken his game to the next level. And he's priced around some real names here. Igala right below him, all those guys I just mentioned above him, Adam Scott. I'm still interested in Stevens, and I don't think you have to worry about ownership at all just because of the names right around him. But Adam Scott, 75. Corey Connors for sure. 7,400. Like, I get it. The course probably doesn't set up great for him, but man, like 7,400 for Corey Connors, like I have to be interested there. Wyndham Clark showed some signs of life last week. Did fall off though. He was round 1 shot to 64. But yeah, it was really one bad round. Really bad round 2, shot a 73 when everyone else was kind of scoring, and that kind of took him out of contention. But that seems low. 73 for Wyndham Clark. Siwoo Kim, good call on your part for round 4. I know he was a staple, I think a core play in the round 4.
God, he killed me. I had him and Kevin Yu as two of the main pegged plays. It was like those are the guys, and it just still went with Scotty because you could afford him, and it did not turn out well after such a hot start.
Yeah, Batia, 7,100. Definitely want to be on him. So I don't know. I look at a lot of these names here and just seem too cheap for the field and what these guys have been throughout the course of their career. And that's, to me, the main takeaway from this range. Victor Hovland, 7,900, like, seems cheap. Adam Scott, Corey Connors, Wyndham Clark, even Batia at 7,100. Guys that could easily be more expensive. And again, I just don't think ownership is going to matter all that much, because I do think after some of these top end guys, I think it does get spread out a little bit. Yeah. And that's my concern with Hovland, dude. Does everyone?
No.
Okay.
No,
Right.
there's no way they get to it. I think you have to call it. It has to be the hoop call. Is he the most disrespectful price you've seen so far?
Yeah, he is. Yeah. Yeah.
You know what's interesting? Two things actually. One, let me see Hovland. So, I've seen a little love out there for certain guys, and Sam Burns is getting a little bit of love. Like Min Woo is playing better overall, but the last result Victor Hovland had 2 weeks ago was a 22nd place, which is the same as Rasmus at that event, the same as Sam Burns at that event, the same as Fleetwood at that event, better than Cantlay. Like, I don't know. Everyone didn't want to give him shit, and you're not going to give him full credit because someone even joked about it, said it's the coach. Yeah, he's priced for coach volatility. He keeps switching up the swing coaches and stuff. But just to note, it is at least somewhat interesting. And then I got to ask, when you said Sam Stevens has good course history here, were you thinking we were playing this course or the actual course that they usually play at, Riviera?
No, I think Torrey Pines, right? I believe he's been good at Torrey Pines, correct?
Yeah, you doubled it. He actually has been pretty good at both. That's why I was laughing to see, because if you looked at this versus that, so okay, oops.
I wasn't tripping, right? I mean, he's been good at Torrey Pines, right?
Yeah, he's fine. It's all good. It was just I wanted to see if he had the answer, because I was like, he might be mega minding all of us here, and he's got media stuff, and he's trying to bring that into play.
No. Yeah, it's definitely not my strong suit, but I'm pretty sure I read that one correctly.
Yeah, some talk on Grazerman, some talk on Min Woo. Like Min Woo is definitely getting love here. So Kenny, you'll be loving it in the Thunderdome and all that stuff. I think you'll be very, very happy if you're moving off of a guy like Min Woo, at least getting what you want going in. You may not be happy with the result if he goes off and crushes you, but definitely think people are going to be good with Min Woo here. He fits a lot of the other metrics that people are looking at. I think the other thing is too, just this mid to bottom range. Yes, JJ Spawn, Bhatia, Siwoo, those types of guys. Poston, I think, was one that I don't know, how far in depth you went on him with some of the other guys around him, but he's another guy that I think people are going to have interest in. It's been a little bit rocky ups and downs, but coming off of a 16th, 12th, a couple weeks before that, we've definitely seen him at higher price points, but 72, I think it'll be a little bit of love there. More on Siwoo, I suspect, though, early on. But that mid-range there of like Sahith, Scott, Connors.
He's an interesting one. I know a lot of people have asked about. Something just does not seem right with Theegala to me, just watching through. I mean, he's had some just very bad rounds that have totally taken him out of contention, it seems like, previous weeks. I don't
It's been bad. Yeah. It has been bad. I wonder, like,
I mean, he shot a 74 last week to open up. I mean, you're done at that point because guys are making a ton of birdies. Here, he shot an 80 on Sunday, an 80, just complete tanked. I don't know. I don't love it.
I think he's had a 25th and a 4th playing at the Farmers before. Again, not comparing the same at all, just to give an example, though, potential. But the price points on some of these guys, I guess there's something to be said this week for probably just, looking at your player pool and just using the sevens only. There's only 20 guys, but let's just name it like Zal, Hovland, who else? Theegala, Poston, Siwoo, Bhatia, maybe like just those guys alone of like, man, they seem I know it's even a stronger field, but they definitely seem under. And Wyndham Clark, I should add into them. I guess even, like Cam Young. It's not guys I'm saying I'm playing all. I'm saying the idea of some weeks, and Mayo and I have done this on certain roster construction shows where it's just like building a lineup with the guys that you were like, why are they at this price? And then watch and see if their talent just somehow comes through and comes back. Because I know we haven't even mentioned Max Homa yet, and that's because we can't. We haven't got to that range yet. He's in the 6Ks at 6,500 for Max Homa at the same. He's actually less than the dude that dressed up in a camouflage suit last week, played so bad in round one, and WDs after he's his first round on a place that he absolutely loves. So poor Ricky Fowler. But go ahead, let's take it into these 6Ks.
I mean, just on the Ricky thing, like if you're showing up to a golf event wearing that getup, like you better know that you're about to come out there and fuck some shit up. Like you're about to get the job done. You're about to dominate. Not only did he suck ass, like he was fucking terrible. He's such a pussy that he withdrew in between rounds. Like that is like the most shameful rollout to a golf event of all time. Wearing that sort of getup, where if you're wearing that, you better dominate. He sucked. And then WDing after the first round where you sucked wearing a camo outfit on the golf course. Like what a little bitch, like absolute bitch. But that's my take on him this week.
These are some good ones.
Oh, my buddies were talking. Oh, did you guys see Ricky? Like, yeah, like, man, like if you show up to that, you better dominate the fucking golf course. Like, you better dominate the course, not do what his ass did and then look like a little bitch in WD. This range, yeah, Max Homa, man. Oh, geez, 6,500, but it's like he could easily be like 6K. Like, he's been so bad. I mean, he's been so.
I forgot about this. Sorry to cut you off, but this is also another thing. There's been a lot of flack given to these sponsors exemptions, like about how it's not about what you've done for the game or what your reach is, like the Fowlers and the Spieths and all that. And it's like, listen, it's still supposed to be that a meritocracy. Like, you got to play your way in. It's extremely tough. There's a lot of grinders out there that never get their shot. It doesn't, so some people are all for it. Like, got to take care of these guys. They've grown the game. They're there for it. Others are really pissed off. And that is kind of just like the cherry on top of the setup.
That's like golf, man, these exemptions. And then you get to the President's Cup and the Ryder Cup, like JT making it last year. I mean, JT sucked at golf all year. And he gets in like over Keegan. Like, that's just what golf is. It's like these names hold more value than what they're actually currently doing and how they're playing. It's stupid part of golf. Like, the names that getting the sponsor exemptions, like Webb Simpson continues to get like sponsor exemptions into some of this stuff. It like just does not make any sense. And, part of probably the overarching issue with the PGA Tour. I mean, that definitely plays into it as far as I'm concerned.
Max Malone at the bottom of the leaderboard.
He should be the only guy in the 5K this week. He should be like 5,900 and everyone else 6K and above. He's been so bad.
Oops, but our names today. This is too good.
Yeah. Let's create a 5K range this week for fucking Homa and Fowler. They can both be $5,900 and everyone else 6K and above. I think that would be fair.
Yeah, the big personalities, like Butch Harmon used to make fun of Rick. He said, "You got to get your shit together, pal." He said, "You're not a Kardashian. You're a golfer." Like, remember, he wasn't winning majors, and when he back in the day, he was actually having his turns. His swing coach, his guy, Butch Harmon, was like, "Buddy, you got to stop being a Kardashian and get out there and play golf and grind and get better." Like, that's how people win majors.
True.
So
true.
Anybody else you're thinking of, or some guys that stand out to you?
Yeah, like, I mean, man, Daniel Berger's just, after watching him last week, such an easy guy to root for. Was very good, had the injury, has not fully been back, and just grinds. He shows up to all these events. He's had to go to some really crappy events, like I think the Mexico Open and really like Corn Ferry Tour-esque events just to kind of get it going. And, I still hadn't been fully solid finish until last week, and just an easy guy to root for. I mean, finished T2, looks solid, 6,900. And I know a lot of people are saying, oh, he's going to be very highly owned. Like, I just don't think he is. Like, I think it does get mixed, spread out a little bit. So good with him. Cam Davis, I think, is a name to kind of look at this week. Seabez, very solid last week. 67. I like playing him when he's very cheap. 67, I think, is interesting. Gary Woodland looks kind of back. 21st, 22nd, 16th, his last 3 events. Like, definitely I'll take a chance on Gary. Ackroat, Justin Rose, potentially. Michael Kim was solid last week. Patrick Rogers, like we kind of talked about, his name was thrown around there in the chat. Kevin Yu can always make some birdies. Jake Knapp gets in here at 6K. Like, there's guys I'll play. I mean, for sure down here. It just, comes down to, and I know our guy Kenny kind of mentioned it, like, if any of these guys start to get some steam, then you're definitely going to see more exposure for dudes like Rory and Scotty up top. But either way, I do think it gets spread out. There's names here. And all appealing to some degree. And I mean, I could end up playing more, honestly. It depends on how my teams look. I mean, they're more likely than not going to play 4 rounds. Obviously, there's going to be some cuts, and we've seen it go the other way where we think it's like a no cut and end up, 6-6 ends up being pretty rare. But it doesn't mean that these guys are the ones that are guaranteed to get cut. So I'll have some exposure down here for sure.
Yeah, I believe this too. I think Homa's definitely a really nice guy. Anytime he's interviewed or have watched a ton of his stuff in the past, a lot of respect for him. I think it's crazy, and it is a grind. He sort of was always vulnerable and showed that off as he went along, but he's just going through it right now. He's been on record in the past saying it's like one good swing thought can sort of change your whole game and switch it up, but he needs to find that one thought to pull it off because it's been tough and the price is kind of warranted. Again, he would fit the mold of what I talked about earlier if you're playing guys down there, but do you have to when you've got all these other options? You mentioned it, Berger, who actually looked good and bounced back last week, and from what we've seen from him, I thought that was a pretty good result. You have guys, like you said, Cam Davis, Bez, McCarthy, Woodland, Rose. There's definitely guys down here that you can already get to. I struggle, I guess, a little bit. I'll have to see. Mayo loves Michael Kim. I've loved the interviews he's done with Michael Kim. The guy's awesome on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, as a follow. But like last week, does that translate anything or even matter coming into this week? I don't know. I'll have to wait and see. I'm not really doing that for a lot of the guys. I'm looking more at it as what this week is, the style of event, the strength of field. What do you really need to build a roster? I don't know. Like there's just so many other guys down here if you were going that range. So we'll have to wait and see. I thought, like, who's the other guy? I guess my point is more if you were doing that, like what did Adam Hadwin end up finishing at?
Good. Very good. He was way up there. Yeah, he had a great fourth round.
Yeah, so I feel like there was other dudes down here that said Denny McCarthy 16th, like Bez 4th, Berger 2nd. So again, it's going to be spread out. How many of these guys do you actually need to get to? We'll have to wait and see when the time comes. But I think just in general, if any of these guys are going to gravitate to like double digits or more, like for example, the Woodlands and the guys like that, maybe in the higher stakes, then I think you look to make a move on them just because there's going to be guys around them that are literally 1% that I just don't see that big of a difference. If you need to make that move, go ahead. But I don't know how much you're actually going to need this range this week a ton when you've got the loaded 7K range and the upper sixes versus talking about the bottom 6K range. I just don't see a lot of the need, at least right now.
Yeah, the only guy I think that has a chance to get a decent bit of ownership is Gary Woodland because we've seen it. He's kind of surprised us with his ownership in a couple events where the roster's locked and it's like, oh shit, like Gary Woodland is this percent owned. So, and he's been playing well for 3 straight weeks. So I think he's the guy that could get it down here and kind of steam up in terms of ownership.
Yeah, agreed. I think it's definitely a high possibility and it makes sense. Looks like it on paper as well a little bit, but does seem like more people want to be in that lower 7K range as much as they can with the Postons, Siwoos, Batias, even, Spawn hurt some feelings last week, but people know it was just an illness. So it's possible that they go back a little. Davis Thompson right there at 7K. He was getting played a ton in Showdown. Berger, 6,900 in the upper sixes. McCarthy, Bez, like you said. So I think it's Woodland and up. It's more what you do with the guys below them. We've got, what do we got total with Knapp getting added? It looks like 22 golfers below. Obviously, Tiger withdrew at 6,300, but Knapp got added in at almost nothing. So I think stone minimum, right? 6K, you said?
Yeah, 6K.
Yeah, yep. So there's options there. Patrick Rogers, I don't think they get steamed enough for it to matter. No. We'll have to wait and see, but I don't see it as of right now. So I think some of those other guys down there are interesting. How your lineup construction goes, whether you're in or out on Scotty, whether you want more studs versus a balanced build, all of those factors and more will come down to what people are actually looking for. And Nick wants to know, he's confused. Are you in or out on Homa here?
Out. Definitely out. He doesn't have the confidence. He wasn't a good mood though. I mean, he was playing like absolute shit last week, and you could see on the telecast it looked like he was having a good time. So I don't know if that's good or bad moving forward. But he played terrible. And he was laughing it up on the course. Maybe he just doesn't care. I'm definitely out on Homa.
It would be an optimal if it happened. I think there's literally 6 Canadians, right? Like there's
let's see, you got
Adwin, Hughes, Taylor, Connors, Pendrick.
Yeah.
I don't even know.
Leave some money on the table for sure. Leave a lot of money on the table. Pendrick,
Canadians. Yeah. Knapp did have a good week. I mean, the thing about Knapp, and DJ's talked about this a ton. He'll probably talk about it tomorrow night on the emergency stream too. But you kind of want to play Knapp in these weaker fields. It's awesome for him as a player on his journey to get into a field like this, to give himself some big money and an opportunity again. But it's definitely a big boy field, and that's where we've seen Knapp sort of struggle a bit more versus in those weaker fields. He's sort of taken them on and crushed. So. Yeah, we've heard this. Have you heard Knapp was a bouncer? Anything else, Hoop? Or if you guys have anybody who you want us to look up, we'll throw it up. I'll bring up the DGen's notes. Anything else you got to add, Hoop, or any extra thoughts?
No, not necessarily. Again, roster construction is going to be pretty big in terms of what people do. It's kind of, I think a lot of people end up playing this like a no-cut event, and it's worked sometimes, and it hasn't worked. Like I don't know if it was. I know it was definitely the first event like this last year. Everyone just assumed it was no cut, and 6 of 6 was like very, very low. So I don't know. Yeah, look up Nap while you're in there because I'm curious what it does say about him, and I'm sure it does say that he's better on weaker in weaker fields.
Yeah, this was the Nico one they asked about. We'll look up Dunlap, Rose. You said Nap, right?
Nap, I'm curious on that what the notes are because I did play him last week.
Notes coming soon.
Oh, all right, maybe that's a good thing.
I can tell you already. It'll have brackets up here and say don't sleep on him.
Don't sleep on him, yeah,
and
for sure.
We'll say in here for sure that like him better in weaker fields. I can give you the early stuff that I already know what's coming. But what are the notes on Homa?
Oh, gosh.
Still might be broken. Correct. It was a proven winner for quite some time. That's the funny thing about Homa and Hovland, a couple of hoes out there. Homa and Hovland were both at one point, people were like going off about them. They're like, these seasons and these people, like they're incredible. Like Hovland, they thought he was going to win every major that year that he started. Remember, he went on that run late the season before. So there was that. And then with Homa, it was that run that he went on, which obviously gives him that. But he has done better in harder scoring conditions on long courses. It's not a no cut, but he's been fine in these types of setups. Plays well on the West Coast. Like this would be a spot, but it's kind of like, get him in some of your lineups and see how it goes. That's what I would look at it. Dunlap, excels in weaker fields, below average on short courses, proven winner, all or nothing type player, great for showdown. Yeah, that's about right. You know what you're getting with a guy like him. I'll do a few more. They said Rose was one they wanted. Better at majors. Occasionally can still put it together in showdown. Not a lot of crazy notes on Rose, but obviously you'd be able to still check him out on the scorecard. And then from a DFS perspective, the value of the stone is phenomenal. I actually did an interview yesterday with Rio, our guy Hebrew Cheetah, for the Mastermind program, and he said he's been crushing it in PGA DFS like every other sport. And he said just go to the stone. He's like it's not that you're just like copying what the stone says to do. He's like, there's just no way you can get all that information in one place anywhere else. You and I have talked about that a ton. Just the packaging of having the player, the tee time, the ownership around them, the sort of stats and things that go with them, all of that in one place is kind of unbeatable when it comes down to it. So that's definitely something. Berger, below average in round one from Florida, best on Bermuda, might be back as elite. This is definitely still live after what we just saw last week, right? Might be back in 2025. Too many bogeys in 2024. Definitely think that's possible. Who else? Anybody else there you saw?
Spieth.
I'll look up Spieth.
Yeah. Spieth, luck box.
Struggles on long courses. Poa Trivial. Yeah. I'm a Nick Taylor slut. There's a good one for you. Yeah. Grinder when in contention. So if we can get him into contention, it's definitely possible. Spieth. Not play him until he proves he's not broken. What do you think the thought process would be on that right now? What would you classify with Spieth right now? In between, somewhat.
Probably in between, I'd say. I mean, one good event showed up. I mean, I haven't looked at the numbers, but I'm guessing it's probably Spieth-esque, where a lot of putting and chipping and that sort of thing. But I'm for this week, like he's still broken to me for this week. Let's put it that way.
This is why DJen loved old Rope Hat at the last time out. This is one of his calls that event. He's been on a heater with those calls too. Had Thomas Dietrich last week as a sleeper, had Charlie Hoffman the week he crushed, but the Harris English thought process, he talked about it. One of the episodes that he did, or the shows, he brought up strong on hard courses. That's why I liked him here when he won the Farmers. Strong on long courses, solid all-around game. Par machine, which is phenomenal for this week, solid in tough conditions. Like Harris English still makes a ton of sense, not because he won. It's totally different than when he won the Farmers. It's more of these long par fours that you just make your pars and move on, and then hope that the par fives go your favor. Like they're still hard to score on, but there's more scoring on the par fives, obviously. So if you can find your way around and make that happen, he's 7,600 in a range where most people want Minwoo, McNeely. We'll see if they go to Hovland, Sam Stevens, Adam Scott, Connors, some of those guys. Harris English is right there. And again, he's not going to win again. It's not the same strength of field. It's totally different conditions. That's fine. He's $7,600. He does not. He could be the last man in to your lineup. So like that's kind of the setup. Yeah, this is something we have a full tutorial on. And then there's also Jay Steele. If you go here under more and tutorials for members, at least. It might be open to all now. I think we opened it up so everybody can see it. There's an advanced stone course as well that DGen had from before. It's a little bit dated now, but we'll get an update out there eventually. But just to note, that's the setup there on some of what people are looking at and how they're using it. Anybody else? Nick says the stone for Showdown, the best thing on the market. Definitely is. Because again, same thing I just said before. There's nowhere else I know that has it all in one place, Soup. It's going to have your golfers, their updated pricing, the sweaty try-hard ownership of actually updating the Showdown ownership when the rest of the industry is mostly lacking on that. And then it's got sort of the grade system there for them of what they've done well. Also, if people don't know this, I probably won't even know what the term means, but it was kind of coined up, but the tap delta, so it's like the true approach is what we've coined it there. It's setting up where if a player has one bad hole on approach because they went in the water 3 times, well, that's going to skew their approach numbers because one bad hole, but they had 17 other sort of decent holes across the board. That will account for that, and nowhere else is going to have that where you can actually find that all again on the exact same one sheet. Our goal is always going to be to simplify things for everybody out there, and that's why, again, having it packaged like that is in itself worth the cost of the membership. If you guys are looking to get in, I'll bring it up again. If you want all access, you can get it for $49 for your first month. That'll include PGA Showdown, MMA, NBA Showdown, NHL, NASCAR, by the way.
Yeah, I was just going to add on to that because it just popped in my head because it's what the Daytona 500 this week. Please, if you are out there and you want content for NASCAR, don't even consider paying like $400 or $500 for a NASCAR only package. Like that is absolute robbery. Like just please don't do that. I mean, just plain and simple, do not pay a shit ton for NASCAR content. If you find someone out there that you like for like $20 a month or something, that like do that instead. But we have it covered here. Part of our all access. Our guy Eric does a phenomenal job breaking it down. Like there's no like secret sauce to NASCAR. People are selling you on they know NASCAR better than anyone else. Absolutely not. It's a math game, really. In a lot of instances, there's some guys that are better at certain tracks, but don't even consider paying $400 to $500 for NASCAR only content. That's one thing I ask. Even if you're not coming here, and you like someone else for NASCAR, that's fine. But do not pay someone $400 to $500 for a NASCAR package. That's all I'm going to say.
You don't get transparency like this anywhere else in the industry. Don't buy us either, but just don't buy that. If you're not buying us, not saying don't, but you get what I mean. It's kind of funny, but I will say one thing I do get pushback on that, Hoops. So I'll just clarify because it's end of the show now. People have other stuff they want to ask or questions about the site, ourselves, anything you can throw them in there. We'll always keep it open a little bit at the end. But I got hit a couple times, whether it was in the email or someone said, yeah, but, and I said, what is it? You don't have Xfinity and you don't have trucks. I'll tell you, Eric, we don't commit to it officially. We have a ton of stuff like that. For those that don't know, when you go more, you don't see tennis. You don't see soccer or football or anything like that. You want to call it like you don't see esports, all that. We don't commit to it because we don't feel that it's premium enough to say this. But when you're in the Discord, you get everything included that our people are covering. Like our members and community have a tennis channel that's nonstop going daily with notes and cores and things like that they're throwing in there. It's the same thing for college basketball. It's the same thing for pretty much anything, but for NASCAR, we officially cover Cup Series. There's like 36 weeks in a row. I think there's 1 week off in April for maybe Easter, but starting with the Daytona 500 this week and covering it all. But Eric is in there doing stuff for Xfinity. He's doing it for trucks. He's throwing ideas and concepts and things that you would want to know for that in the Discord. And you get full access to the Discord with any monthly or more plan. So really just want you to know that, like, Dollar Bills here, for example, tennis chat is crazy good. Like, Murtis, our guy, so B. Morrell, and then our main guy, Pickett, who's been running it forever. These guys know their tennis. It's incredible, and they're in there chatting about it daily. I popped in one day, got some of the notes, threw it in, turned $12 into $1,200. It was just like that, and they're like, man, it's if you get the information, you know what you're doing and playing DFS, this is a definite resource to you. Our Discord is a huge add-on that probably doesn't get talked about enough. It's definitely the key. So I don't see nothing else. Anything else you want to talk about before we get out of here?
No, all our content will go up nice and early, and obviously get in the Discord chat. I mean, the PGA chat and Discord is always going. A lot of good little nuggets and conversations. So content will go up early, get in the Discord, join the conversation. let's have a big week here.
Yeah, value report free as well. So anybody who's not a member, you can just go to our site, go PGA Value Report, get you a little taste. Shout out to our guy, Lee Aldrich, always there grinding it for the people. Other sites charging for value reports. He's had many weeks already where all of them make the cut, if not 5 of 6 or something like that make it through. So check out the value report. It's completely free. If you do want to sign up, just go to the main page, shipitnation.com, click join the nation. This is the one here. If you use code SHIP50, you get it for $49 for your first month. It's complete all access with our optimizer. You'll see here, it'd be $59 usually for just golf. And then if you want the golf package, bring it up one last time before we get out of here. This is PGA 100, but the code is automatically built in. So you see this is $399, but when you click into it, it will be $299 for the entire season. It's a complete annual pass this time next year. And then if you want with optimizer, the way I would definitely recommend it for just $50 more, $349 for the entire annual pass. You're going to be right back, not just till the end of the season. You're going to get all the events that we just went through up to this point. It's a complete 365-day package for $299 or $349. So appreciate you guys. Thank you for watching. We're going to go through all this like this on these upcoming shows. Come back tomorrow night for Degenerate 75 with the emergency stream. For Hoop, for myself, ToeTagginTambo, let's ship it!